Have you ever looked at someone and felt like you were staring at your own reflection? Not a sibling, not a cousin. A mirror image of yourself, sitting right in front of you, and you've never met before? This is the story of two identical girls who met by chance, only to uncover a truth buried for over 20 years, a secret that changed everything. Clara and Diana had nothing in common. Different lives, different homes, different families. But they shared something no one else could explain: an identical face. That day, both girls boarded the same commercial bus heading to the city. It was early morning, the kind of quiet that makes you want to curl up and sleep. Clara found a window seat halfway back. Diana followed close behind and sat beside her without hesitation. At first, it was just silence between them. But then came the glances. Quick ones. Then longer ones. Each girl stealing side eyes, trying to understand why the other looked so familiar. Diana finally broke the silence. "Excuse me, have we met before?" Clara shook her head slowly, eyes wide. "I don't think so, but I feel like I've seen you somewhere." The unease grew. It wasn't just their looks. It was the way they spoke, the way they smiled. Even the small scar above their left eyebrow matched perfectly. And there, on the inside of their left arms, was the same heart-shaped birthmark. They stared at each other now, unable to look away. "Please," Clara whispered, voice trembling. "What's your name?" "Diana." "And yours?" "Clara." A pause. What's your birthday?" Diana asked, almost afraid of the answer. "February 23rd, 2004. Diana gasped. "Same birthday." Their hands trembled. Their hearts raced. Something deep inside told them this couldn't be a coincidence. This was fate knocking loudly on their lives. "We need answers," Diana said, standing up suddenly. "Now." Without another word, they stepped off the bus together, strangers no more. Diana led Clara to her mother's house, hoping for clarity. Instead, they walked into a storm of emotions waiting to break. Alice, Diana's mother, opened the door and froze. Her eyes landed on Clara and widened as if she'd seen a ghost from the past. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Diana confronted her. "Mummy, did you give birth to twins?" Alice flinched. "I didn't give birth to twins, my princess. Maybe it's just a coincidence." But Diana wouldn't accept that. She pressed harder. "Mummy, how come we share the same birthday? How come we have the same birthmark? You're lying to me." Tears welled in Alice's eyes. She looked at Clara again, then at Diana. The weight of the past crashed down on her shoulders. And finally she whispered, "I will tell you the truth, my daughter." Alice took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she looked at the two girls standing before her. One she raised, and the other she never thought she'd see again. "I didn't give birth to you, Diana," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "I adopted you on the day you were born." Clara gasped softly, her fingers gripping the edge of the chair she had just sat down on. Diana stood frozen, eyes wide, heart pounding like a drum. Alice continued, tears now streaming down her face. 21 years ago, I was in the hospital after giving birth to a baby girl. But my daughter didn't survive. I was broken, devastated, and terrified. She paused, remembering the pain that never truly faded. My husband's family had already been pressuring me. They wanted grandchildren. If they found out my baby had died, I was afraid he would leave me. I begged for help from the midwife who was taking care of another woman in the same ward, a woman named Sarah. Diana's lips trembled, but she stayed silent, listening intently. Sarah had just given birth to twin girls, Alice continued. But she didn't make it. She passed away shortly after childbirth. Her elderly sister was there, mourning her loss. I begged them. I offered money. I asked them to switch one of Sarah's babies with mine, to let me keep one of the twins so I could have a child of my own. Clara covered her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. They agreed. The room fell into silence. One baby was taken from Sarah's side and given to me. That baby was you, Diana. The other twin was taken home by Sarah's grieving husband. 21 years ago, Alice and Sarah were in the same delivery room. Sarah gave birth to twin baby girls, but sadly, she died while the twins lived. Alice, on the other hand, gave birth to one baby girl, but the baby died and Alice survived. At the time Sarah gave birth, her husband was not around. Her older sister, Jennifer, was the one with her in the delivery room. After Alice gave birth and her baby girl died, she started crying uncontrollably because that child was her only hope. In her deep sorrow, she called one of the midwives who had helped Sarah during delivery, as well as Sarah's older sister, who was still mourning the death of her sister. Alice begged them with tears in her eyes. "Please, I need your help," Alice cried. "I've been married for 9 years without a child, and this baby was my only hope. My husband's family has been pressuring him to leave me because I couldn't have children. If he finds out this baby is dead, he might divorce me. He's already been threatening to do so." She turned to Sarah's older sister with tears streaming down her face. "Please, Ma, I'm begging you. I want you to give me one of your sister's babies and let me replace her with my dead child. I'll pay you $5,000 right now." Sarah's older sister didn't hesitate. She agreed to sell one of the twins. After Alice made the payment, Sarah's sister called her late sister's husband and lied to him, saying that one of the babies had died. Alice took one of the twins and named her Diana, while Sarah's husband named the remaining baby Clara. Years later, Alice's husband passed away, and Alice decided to move to a new town with Diana, her adopted daughter. Meanwhile, Charles, Sarah's husband, was struggling to raise Clara on his own. Eventually, he got married again, but his new wife began treating Clara like a slave. When Charles saw how badly she was treating his daughter, he immediately divorced her. 2 years after the divorce, Charles got married again, but his new wife also mistreated Clara. Despite several warnings, she continued to treat Clara badly. Charles couldn't take it anymore. He divorced her too and made a firm decision to remain a single father. Clara was extremely valuable and precious to him, and he refused to let anyone hurt her again. Many years later, Clara and Diana met at a bus stop, and that was the moment the truth finally came out. So after, Alice sat both girls down and revealed everything to them. As she spoke, tears flowed from their eyes. "So, we're sisters," Clara whispered. Diana turned to her, tears spilling over. "We're twins." They stared at each other, overwhelmed by the truth. A truth that had been hidden for over 20 years. A truth that changed everything. Diana, heartbroken but calm, said, "Mummy, you have to tell my real father the truth. He deserves to know." Alice nodded and agreed to go with them to see Charles, Diana and Clara's biological father. That night, neither girl could sleep. They lay awake in the same bed, staring at the ceiling, hearts full of questions. The next morning, they went to Charles's house, a small, modest home. Diana hesitated before knocking on the door. When Charles opened it, his eyes landed on Diana, and he froze. His face went pale. His hands gripped the doorframe. He staggered back slightly, as if struck by lightning. Without a word, he stepped aside and let them in. Alice followed behind, her head bowed. Inside, the air was thick with emotion. Charles sat across from them, eyes darting between the two identical faces. Finally, Alice spoke. "Sir, this is your other daughter." Silence. Then, the tears came, not just from Charles, but from all of them. Alice told him everything. How she had stolen one of the twins. How she had lied. How she had lived with regret every single day. Charles listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood up slowly. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Then he walked toward Diana, reached out, and pulled her into a long, tight embrace. "I lost you," he whispered, "and now I've found you again." Clara watched, heart swelling with joy and sorrow. Her father had suffered alone for so long. Now, he wasn't alone anymore. The truth had been spoken. The silence was heavy with emotion as the words settled into every heart in the room. Charles stared at Diana, his long-lost daughter, and then at Clara, who had always been by his side but never truly whole. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for them both. "I lost you," he whispered, voice thick with tears. "And now I've found you again." Clara leaned into him, wrapping her arms around her father's neck. Diana followed, hugging them both tightly. For the first time in 21 years, the three of them were together, not as strangers, but as family. Alice stood a few feet away, eyes filled with guilt and sorrow. She had lived with this secret for so long, carrying it like a stone in her chest. Now, she waited for judgment. But Charles didn't speak in anger. Instead, he turned to her slowly and said, "I can't pretend what you did didn't hurt me. It broke something inside me that I thought could never be fixed. But seeing my daughters together, I know you must have loved her. And maybe you've suffered enough." Alice wept quietly. "I want to make things right," she said, wiping her tears. "For all of us." A few days later, Alice returned with something unexpected, a large sum of money. She handed the envelope to Charles with trembling hands. "This is for you," she said softly, "to start your own business, to give Clara and Diana a better life than what either of us could offer alone." Charles looked at the envelope, then back at her. He didn't take it immediately. "I don't need this to forgive you," he said. "I know," she replied. "But let it be the beginning of something new. For all of us." He finally accepted it, and with it came a quiet understanding. Not just forgiveness, but healing. Weeks passed, and the four of them began spending more time together. Clara and Diana would visit Alice's house, or Charles would cook dinner for all of them. Slowly, they built something beautiful from the pieces of a painful past. One evening, after dinner, the two girls sat on the couch, watching their parents talk quietly across the room. Diana nudged Clara. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Clara grinned. "Yeah, they should get married." They spent the next few days plotting. Subtle suggestions. Small moments. Inviting Alice over, just for dinner. They looked at each other, then simultaneously stood up and walked to where Charles and Alice sat. "Listen," Diana began, her voice steady. "You two are single. You're both amazing people. And we love you both so much." Clara continued, smiling through tears. "We want you to get married. Not just for us, but for you too. So we can finally have what we've always wanted, a real family." Charles and Alice stared at each other, stunned. Alice was the first to speak. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Charles. But if you believe there's still a place for me in your life." Charles reached for her hand. "You gave me back my daughter," he said softly. "How could I not forgive you?" And just like that, a new chapter began. Months later, under a canopy of stars and surrounded by a few close friends, Charles and Alice exchanged vows in a simple but beautiful ceremony. Clara and Diana stood beside them, dressed alike, beaming with joy. No longer strangers. No longer missing pieces. Just sisters. Just family. Together, they moved into a new home, a house filled with laughter, late-night talks, shared meals, and endless hugs. Clara no longer felt alone. Diana no longer felt incomplete. And Charles finally held both his daughters in his arms, just as he was meant to all along. Sometimes, the truth hides in plain sight. Sometimes, the people we're meant to find are closer than we think. And sometimes, love finds its way back, even after decades of separation. For over 20 years, a painful secret was buried, one that caused heartbreak, loneliness, and confusion for everyone involved. When the truth finally came to light, it didn't bring destruction, but rather healing. It reminded us that no matter how heavy or painful, the truth has the power to restore broken relationships and rebuild lost connections. Forgiveness can rewrite the future. Charles had every reason to turn away from Alice. She had taken his daughter from him without his knowledge. But instead of holding on to anger, he chose forgiveness. That choice opened the door for a new beginning. Not just for him and Alice, but for Clara and Diana too. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it gave them all a future they never thought they'd have. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means refusing to let it control your tomorrow. Family is more than blood. It's love and choice. Clara and Diana were twins by birth, but they became sisters through love, understanding, and shared experience. Charles and Alice found each other again not just because of the past, but because of the choices they made in the present. And even though Diana was adopted, her bond with Alice was real. In the end, what held them together wasn't biology, it was the love they chose to build together. Family isn't always about where you come from, it's about who walks beside you, loves you, and chooses you every single day. This story reminds us all that even in the darkest chapters of life, there is always hope, healing, and the chance for a beautiful new beginning. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone you love. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable stories. Because some stories are too beautiful to keep to yourself. Thank you very much for watching.